to transform your agency lead generation training. And it's one of the Cactus Referral Masterclass sessions that we do. So the journey here today began at the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, when we conducted the largest UK lead generation survey for agencies. And the survey revealed 3 key findings. The first was the Cactus lead generation system, which most of you who are undertaking this training with me today are probably aware of it. In the book, we reference something called the 30-30-30-10 of lead generation and for new business. And the survey showed us that there are actually now 4 ways that leads are sourced from. And those 4 ways that I referenced are sort of the percentages of where the business come from had changed. So instead of being 30-30-30-10, the 4 separate ways that agency leads come in, that had moved to slightly more of an equal 25-25-25-25. So there's a slight shift in that, but that was the first key finding. The second key finding, and oh, by the way, and that 25-25-25-25 was actually basically demonstrating that leads had come, where leads had come from the client's largest, agency's largest clients. So it wasn't a strategy. There's a lot of people out there that will tell you this is a new business strategy. The slight difference here was this is a system based on where leads are genuinely coming from at the moment. And I think agencies historically, we've got a, and I did this too with my agency. We're a bit guilty of kind of seeing somebody else doing a certain type of marketing and assuming that was a good way to get business. And so I'd copy it and do that marketing. And so the report really helped validate, where does agency business actually come from? The second area was that we identified that whilst there was about 40 areas that leads, there were sort of 40 main lead types for the sources that agencies win business from, only 12 of those lead sources made up 80% of all of the agency's surveyed business. So clearly, there was around 28 areas that people do marketing for leads, and they do work, but they're maybe not as effective as the main 12 areas. And thirdly, the reason why hopefully you're all here today, for those of you who read the report, and for me, we identified that almost 50% of all agency leads that led to the agency's largest client had in fact derived from one kind of referral or another. Now, I was a little shocked at this because I've never really sought to identify what that percentage was. I was well aware that a large amount of our business comes from referrals, but I was quite surprised it was as high as 50%. And so we wanted to investigate a little bit further of those referrals. Where did they come from? And we identified that there were 13 key referral sources. So this 12-step training course today is going to help you identify those. We're going to share with you what those 13 key referral sources were. And we're going to give you practical tips on how you can activate each of those referral sources and make them part of your agency marketing. So why are referrers important for lead generation? Well, first of all, a trusted referral converts at a much higher rate than almost all other marketing. And so if you compare the conversion rate of a referral versus, let's say, an inbound inquiry from a content marketing campaign or a SEO campaign, you are going to increase the conversion rate on that deal with, there'll be a lot less effort to win that opportunity. You'll be qualifying out a lot less opportunities. People are 4 times more likely to buy when they're referred by a friend or colleague. So, you know, you're going to find the conversion rate is higher. Referrals have one of the lowest cost per customer acquisition investments and higher lifetime values. So not only are they going to be cheaper to acquire referral business, when you've got the client, they're going to spend more with you over that lifetime. Prospective agency clients typically ask acquaintances for recommendations and referrals for the service that they need to procure, to de-risk selecting the wrong agency. And I think I would urge a lot of you today to go away and actually carry out much more detailed persona work on who your target client is. Because if your target client is a marketing manager and all your marketing activity is email marketing, you're going to find it very difficult to, I'm not going to say it won't work, but you need to understand that most marketing managers, certainly most CMOs, probably get 30 to 40 inquiries a day, maybe even the worst case a week, or the best case a week, from agencies trying to solicit them to be clients. So do some persona work. Yesterday, I spoke to a marketing manager and I said to her, when you were a marketing manager in your agency, how did you find other agencies? If you need, so in your brand, how did you find other agencies? And the answer is, I would say 90% the same. And that's why I urge you to go away and do the research. The answer was that I ask other marketing managers who are friends of mine which agencies they use. And the reason they do that is they want to de-risk the chance of choosing someone who could be a risk, who may not deliver. If they cannot, if their friends and their colleagues and their associates don't know another agency, then they will revert to other areas to find leads, but it's always secondary. So 92% of consumers trust referrals from people they know. Really backs and stacks that up when it comes to talking about agencies and selling service. So the example of the challenges I'm going to help you overcome today are 83% of satisfied customers say that they would be happy to refer, but only 29% actually do. So it's not just your customers who would be happy to refer you but don't. You know, what we're trying to do now is to help you understand that if we can take that 83% who aren't referring you and turn your approach from being reactive to proactive, you should be able to drive even more referrals and introductions into your business. Because I'm going to guess on the whole, the majority of people that are listening to this training course today, your referrals and recommendations just come in because you do a great job. But actually, if you were to flip that and be more proactive, then you should be able to drive much more business into your business through referrals. So just imagine right now a super confident version of you, prioritizing 15 minutes, just 15 minutes of each day to have an enjoyable conversation with someone who would be happy to help you with a referral or an introduction to someone relevant that they know. If you were to do that with, let's say on average, we take 5 weeks holiday a year, 47 working weeks in a year, that would be 235 conversations about referrals and potential introductions. And if only 3% of those came through, that would be 7 new pieces of business a year. And I think if you, those of you who've maybe done other training courses with me, you'll hear me often talk about meeting 50 new people a month, and that would tend to lead to 3 opportunities for me. Actually, if you work out those percentages, it's probably very similar to this. I would probably would expect about 3% of those conversations to turn into opportunities. So 7 new pieces of business a year for your agency, if you can get this working correct, I would suggest as a minimum. And some of you are probably able to have 2 conversations a day, could double that to 15. So hopefully you're going to see some real uplift in your new business by the time you've completed all of the actions in this course. So let's get on and introduce to you the Cactus Agency Referral System. The Cactus Referral System is an end-to-end system. There are 12 steps involved. Proactively driving referrals rather than simply reacting to them. It supports non-suit owners and more introverted or ambiverted owners because it can involve more written communication. There's more process around making this work. And actually, you need to have more meaningful conversations. That's not to say it won't work for people who are extroverted, more sales-focused agency leaders. I'm just saying it's a more holistic approach for everybody to be able to play a part in it. So it supports those of you who are creative, who are engineers, who are strategists, owning and working in agencies. We reveal the 13 ways that referrals are generated, and explains how to market to those top 13 referral sources, and hopefully gets the whole team involved in lead generation and sales, something that I know many of you struggle to do to create a real sales culture in the business, and that often can be the difference between the most successful agencies and the least ones. And then finally, at the end of this presentation, and separate to us sharing the recording today with you for the training, we're going to give you a workbook, which is a document that enables you to work through the 20 actions that I'm outlining in this presentation. So the key principles that underpin our Cactus referral system are very important. And it's a reminder for you that, first of all, the customer life cycle that happens with a referrer is a referrer or somebody introduces to you somebody who turns into a prospect. You then have to create chemistry with them, because you know when you sell service, we create chemistry. We have to build trust and rapport. We have to demonstrate our credentials and demonstrate the problems that our agency can solve, and hopefully the problems that we're solving for that particular prospect. And we have to deliver, but demonstrate that we have a proven way of delivering that method. So through our case studies, we demonstrate that we have the capability, and we present the outcomes of previous projects or campaigns or the activity we've carried out as an agency. And hopefully, if things go quite well at that point, the client may test your service and give you an opportunity to work together. And the client will start to engage with you. The client will then repeat that engagement with you, hopefully, whether you have a retainer or you have a series of repeated projects, or you have some kind of account-based fee coming in from them, which means that you'll be getting regular products because you're on an approved roster, for example. The client will then hopefully provide you with a case study. The FAME clients will hopefully support you in creating a award entry, because it's FAME clients who want to look good, and that's why you create award entries for the clients, not actually for your agency necessarily. And on the back of that, because they're happy clients, they should then refer you to other people naturally, because you've done a good job. And if they do that, the cycle repeats. So it goes back, they refer a prospect, you create chemistry, and there's a perpetual life cycle here that could grow. The clever thing though is at point 9, if you're able to get them to recommend more than just one person, or proactively drive them to recommend more, all of a sudden you could get much more exponential growth on your client referrals, and actually maybe even look to very quickly double or treble your current business by really driving client referrals even more further. So let me introduce to you the 12 steps. So you're going to see this word task in bold throughout this training course, and I'm going to be issuing tasks through you all the way through. Now, you don't need to go away and do those tasks now, because you need to listen and pay attention to me. And as I said, at the end of this presentation, there's a 1-page action plan, which will help you act as a checklist, so you can check off that you've done all of the tasks that I've issued to you. Step 1, referral value. So task 1, the first thing that we want you to do after this training course today is to go away and identify all of the referrals that have given you, all of the individuals that have given you referrals to date. Now, I want you to create 2 lists here. One, which is all the people that referred you opportunities that you went on and won the business, and another one where they referred you business, but you didn't win the business. So you should have 2 lists. And the second task, which will probably help you further complete the first task, is I want you to go through your accounting package, print out your debt. It's called the debtor list, the list of all your clients. So you might have a top client list in your accounting package, and write down your top 10 to 20 clients from the past couple of years. Now, I say 10 or 20, some of you might have 50 or 100, but I would urge you to look at the spend that they've had with you maybe in the last 12 months and find a sort of a breaking point. So you might say, well, every client that spent over a threshold amount of money, but at least 10 to 20 clients. And I want you to identify which of those clients originated, if any of them did, from a referral. And I want you just to write down again who was that referrer, so you can put it back onto the first list in case you miss anybody. But you should end up then with a list of clients that came as a result of referrals. And as we are focusing today on leads, I'm not going to be talking so much about the difference between a marketing qualified lead or a sales qualified lead. I'm going to just take the point right now that referrals are coming into, you're getting leads, and of course you're having to qualify those leads. I get it, but it's not the referrer's fault whether the lead is right or wrong. The point is that person has referred you. So I want you to fully understand on the third task, what was the total lifetime value of the leads that you have received, whether you won them or lost them, but bottom line is obviously the value of the ones you won will be more important through referrals. So what I'm hoping is you're going to come back and say, well, you know, we turn over £1 million or £10 million, and actually we've now attributed £500,000 or £5 million to leads that came through some kind of referral. Now, even if that number is much, much lower, it's really important for me to understand the value, because I'm imagining a lot of you people listening here today are probably spending several £1,000s a month on doing marketing activities that probably convert very poorly or very badly. Whereas actually, when you look at probably the amount of money you've spent on creating referrals, it's probably very little. And you've probably won a reasonably significant amount of money from it. So I want you to understand that you need to start investing more in making referrals work, because it is a lower cost of acquisition and it's a higher lifetime value. And hopefully it will give you the confidence to make those investment decisions. I'm confident you're going to see some real value in the leads that came from referrers. I know this because in the lead generation report, you know, we know that referrers were 50%. In fact, of the top 12 ways, many of those contained referring sources. So it's going to be, I'm hopefully that you're going to come away from this day thinking that you're going to use more of your marketing money to generate and to use them to carry out the recommendations that I'm making. If referrals are less than 50% of your new business, then the ones you send to clients, by the time you've actioned the task in this presentation, I'm confident you'll get that number up. So let's say, for example, only 10% of your business is currently coming from referrals of some description. I think if you carry out the actions in here, you'll be able to drive that number up much further. However, if let's say you are getting more than 50% of your business currently from referrals, then clearly you're probably going to need to take or engage with us on another one of these masterclasses, training classes around the CATS agency lead generation system, because you're going to need to broaden your marketing mix. So some of people I often speak to will tell me that all of their business comes from referrals, for example, and clearly these will be the areas that they need to kind of expand to make sure that it's a slightly wider lead generation investment made. So your fourth task is to create a system moving forwards that tracks anybody that refers a lead or refers you a business, refers you, a connection that turns into an opportunity, whether you win it or lose it. And you should be aiming to be thanking those people by sending out gifts almost every week. I'm going to talk a little bit more about thanking referrers a bit later on, but ultimately, you've got to find a system so you don't forget them, okay? And I'll explain again more about that later in the training, why you should do that. So number 2, identifying the referrers. From the list of names of referrers you've now got, okay, I want you then to also look to cross-reference them against the 13 referring sources. So you might turn around and say, well, all of the referrers that we've had so far have been clients. And then that will be great news for you, because if that is the case, then I'm going to say to you, there are other people who refer in leads on a regular basis, a daily basis, to agencies of all sizes, from the smallest to the largest in the network agencies. And those other areas are friends, family, personal contacts, your network, business acquaintances that maybe are maybe slightly outside of your normal business network, previous people you used to work with. This section can also include referrals that have come from people that have sat on panels with you, that have maybe been in the audience when you've done an interview, have listened to you on stage or spoken to you afterwards. It could be employees, past, current, and future. Talk more about that again later on in the section, but the employees is the 5th largest referral source into agencies of leads. Partnerships, and the partnerships are broken down here into different areas. So actually the 5th area is suppliers, the 6th is non-execs, the 7th is ambassadors, the 8th is from strategic partnerships and alliances. 9, partner agencies. Many of you will already be doing this. The big network agencies, they create partnerships within their groups, and the independent agencies form collaborations with other agencies. We call them frenemies sometimes. And the 10th area is social media referrers. So people who are referring and connecting you from online, social selling, we call it. And number 11, the prospects that you are talking to. So let's say you've got a new business opportunity. Often the people, I'm sure everyone's got an example of this, where the prospect you're talking to is suddenly introducing you to other people during that sales process who they also know that you could help. And maybe sometimes they're doing that in a way to try and leverage that they are going to be able to, introduce more business as some kind of value exchange. The 12th way is through recommendations and through referral websites and reviews. And I would also include things like league tables in there as well. And the last and 13th way is what I call the accidental, random, fame, the unknown way. And I actually experienced this myself about 4 weeks ago, where I had somebody call me up from Austria asking me to do some work for them. I asked them who had referred me, and it was a name I've never heard of, I'm not connected to on any social media. And obviously somewhere along the line, they'd come across something I'd written and felt compelled to introduce me as an expert. So I put that in 13 because actually I think there is a way that you can create those more random inbound referral opportunities. So task 5 is to cross-reference. So write down all of the individual referrers, put them against the 13 and see what you're good at and what you're bad at, because you're going to identify hopefully then some missing areas that you can get better at. Because if, let's say, for example, 100% of your agency, your referrals come from clients, as I said before, that probably means that you've got about another, 9 times the amount of referrals, or 12 times the amount of referrals to come from the other areas if you get those right too. So throughout this 12-step presentation, I'm going to give you additional ideas on how you can specifically generate leads from each of those other 13 referrer types from the previous slide. So number 3, getting on message. The way that you explain what you do to others is key for getting new business referrals. It might sound the most obvious thing in the world, this, but I was in a taxi the other day and the taxi driver said to me, "What is it you do?" And I don't get asked it every day of the week. And so I kind of stumbled and blurted out what I did and tried to explain it to him. And I realized then the importance of just having that on the tip of your tongue and also being able to practice it on a regular basis. And our businesses often change and they evolve, so we have to do this quite often. But the second thing that's very important for me is whenever you tell somebody what you do, what your elevator pitch is, it's important that you place what I call is a future trigger point, because the person you're telling what you do to may not have a need to use you, may not have a problem that they need you to solve right now. And in fact, they may well be the wrong person to ever find you an opportunity. But that one person might know 500 or 1,000 or 10,000 other people, of whom maybe one of those people may have a problem that you can solve. So it's called a future trigger point. I'll explain more about how it works and what it does, but it's important that you're able to communicate these two things extremely well. So I was always taught you should always be able to explain what you and your business does in a way that your nan understands, and certainly a taxi driver, I would say. And so I think we've lost this a little bit in more later years. We all have incredibly clever and sophisticated positioning statements, vision statements, manifestos. We have, the why we do what we do. But it's very important that we're able to explain the what we do in a very simple way that everybody could understand. Because we've all met people in business who explain what they do or their company does, and we just don't understand what they're talking about. Don't be that person, don't be the bumbling Spencer in the back of the taxi. Be the person that explains it very simply, succinctly, so that anybody could understand what it is you do. The simpler it is, the more likely you are to have success when communicating. In today's world, of course, it can be important to talk about the why you do things as much as the what. But the what is is the most important thing you need to get across, because as agency owners selling service, not products, we have to solve problems. So telling people what we do helps them identify what problems we can solve, but the why we do it might resonate more with the people we connect and might build an even deeper, meaningful connection. So it is important. So everybody that you speak to in those 13 referral lead sources must walk away clearly whenever they've had an interaction with you, understanding the problems that you solve if they are to use you or recommend you. And I've got a 4-step simple format that really, in just a few words, can help you explain what problems you solve for businesses. Now, you might have a better system for doing this, because many of you listening to this training are probably actually running branding agencies or even positioning businesses. But for me, this simple 4-step is almost a really fail-safe way of actually creating a way to explain what you do very simply. And it works a bit like this. So it's who does. So is it I, we, my business, at our agency? It's then how do you solve the problem? So do I help? Do I create? Do I develop? Do I transform? Do I reimagine? What is it I actually do? Then it's so how do I solve the problem? Then it's who do I help or serve? So who is it I'm actually solving? So is it entrepreneurs, startups? Is it your sector? I help sports organizations or pharmaceutical, or I help fast-growing, boring companies, fast-growing or boring companies. We help British brands. What is it? Who is it you're actually helping? And that, by the way, might change depending on the scenario that you're in. And then what are the problems that you actually solve? So what do you actually do? And I always like to give this example of probably the best agency salesperson, along with myself, I've ever met. And his name was Peter, and he was from Manchester. And he actually earned more money than the chief exec of the business that bought my agency that I built up. And I took him out for a coffee, and I said to him, what was the secret to the fact that he sold so much, earned so much commission, that he was earning more than the CEO of a £100 million business? And he said to me that he used to get on a plane from Manchester and fly over to Washington, DC once a month to go into a room which was full of people from the pharmaceutical sector in America. As a trade body used to organize, for pharmaceutical, used to organize this event monthly. And when people went up, although he worked from Manchester, he was actually from London. So he had a slightly posh English accent, British accent. And when asked what he did by the Americans in the room, he would say, I help American pharmaceutical companies launch their products and services in Europe. And it was the right message, the right elevator pitch in the right room. And he said to me, most people I speak to would say, hey, we need help launching our products in the UK and Europe. I should talk to you about that. So he was the only one. It was the right message in the right room, and obviously at the right frequency, just once a month. So the importance of getting an elevator pitch, I'm hopefully you'll see the importance of that. Now, for me, mine is today. Let's say I'll do what I would have done before, but in a minute, sorry. But for now, it's I help agency owners overcome their growth challenges. Peter, my business partner, he says I help agency owners sleep at night, because obviously he focuses more on financial stuff, and it's the financial stuff that obviously makes those of you who own businesses worry, because you're worrying about cash flow and things like that. Then I would go on and tailor that message depending on who I was speaking to. So I would then say, let me give you a couple of examples. So, in this case, I might say, let me give a couple of examples. I've helped this agency overcome this problem, or I've helped this agency overcome that problem. And I would probably tailor those two stories to the person I'm speaking to as much as possible. So the whole elevator pitch is probably taking less than 60 seconds, by the way. In my old agency, it would have been, I help sports organize. So I'd be out, I'll try and do this in plain English because I don't want to sound like I'm reading from a script, but it'd be like, so what do you do? Well, I help sports organizations create world-class websites. Let me give you a couple of examples. We built Liverpool Football Club website. We did, or we helped the NFL launch their European website to help promote American football across Europe. So I'd give them a couple of examples. And again, depending on who I spoke to, I'd give them the most relevant examples possible. And there are two things you've got to walk away from any meaningful business conversation, okay, in order to drive referrals. The first thing is you've got to understand what it is the other person does, so you may be able to recommend or connect them in the future. Because if you know what they do, the more you're going to be able to help them out, the more likely they are to help you out back, right? We'll talk more about that in a minute. And secondly, we've got to make sure that you've planted a future trigger point with them. Because whilst they know what you do, they might not be the sort of person who they may not be working in sports, right? They might be, I might have met somebody who's an entrepreneur running a business. I don't know, I'm running a tech business, and I'm telling him or her that I'm building large worldwide sports websites. I've got to make sure that in the future, if they ever meet anybody in sport, that they're promoting me. So I called it a future trigger point because of the way I structured the end of the way I ended conversations when I meet people. I still, by the way, do this today with what I do on the phone when I talk to agencies. So it meant in the future that the person I was speaking to, if they did come into contact with the right person, they would probably remember what I did and introduce me. And there's probably an element, if someone out there's an NLP expert, they'll probably tell me there's some behavioral psychology behind that verifies my strategy here. But it worked time and time again. So sometimes you have to meet the wrong person. We all know that, to meet the right person. I'm sure many of us that's happened to on our journey. So what I would say is, look, it's been really interesting speaking with you. And obviously I'd be genuine and authentic, because hopefully it has been interesting speaking with them. If you ever come across an agency that's having, so this is what I do now with Cactus, by the way, just to make it clear. So if you ever come across an agency that's having difficulties with their business, or they're struggling to break through a certain stage of growth, then just please feel free to intro them to me. And I'll try and help them. And if I can't help personally, I'll pass them on to someone who can specifically solve the problem that they've got. So whenever I said this, I would never say to the person on the phone, you should use me because of ABC. I'd be saying, if you ever come across anybody that needs it. And of course, what then would happen is, if it was the right person, they would say, so actually, let me give you an example of what I've said at Blue Halo first. So Blue Halo, I would say, great speaking with you. If you ever come across anyone in sport that's looking for help with anything website related, then please intro me and I'll try and help. And if I can't help them, I'll pass them on to the right person. And what's fascinating really about that sort of that comment was that sometimes, it might activate in 3 or 4 months, or even a week, and other times 7 years later, someone would say, oh, listen, I just met someone who basically works in sports, they need a website, can I introduce you? So it's one of those memorable statements you leave with people that actually can kind of almost pay dividends at any stage in the future. So at some stage in the future, they're going to meet someone, and that person's going to say to them, do you know anyone that builds websites in sports? And they're just going to suddenly click in their brain that it's going to activate this this reminder of the conversation that we had, because you didn't sell to them. You said if they ever meet, and in their head they pre-programmed this, if they ever meet. So your next task should be to create an updated elevator pitch. If you've already got one, just review it, practice it, learn it by heart, and make it as natural and as fluid as you can. So when you're asking, you don't do what I did the other day in the taxi, which is to stumble. Stage 4, reciprocity and referrals. Now, by now, I would imagine everyone listening to this understands what reciprocity is, but I want to really make sure that you really understand what it is, because every day I experience very strange conversations with people who clearly do not understand how it works. And what I mean by that is their behavior is not that of someone who is likely to receive any reciprocity. So in social psychology, reciprocity is a social form of responding to a positive action with another positive action, rewards in kind rewards. So if I invite you to my birthday in 2 weeks' time, you are more likely to invite me back to your birthday. If I help you out in some way, you are more likely to help me out. If I'm horrible to you, you're more likely to be horrible to me. And a negative action actually creates a much far worse situation than a positive one. But as a social construct, reciprocity means that people there's a behavioral bias, that people are more responsive to people who are friendly to them than predicted by the self-interest model, which basically means if someone comes across as only interested in themselves, then actually people will identify that, and they will not feel in any way that they want to reciprocate or work with you or help you. So this means you should always try and help any people that you meet, and any one of those 13 areas includes other agencies. It includes partners, suppliers. Just think about that. It doesn't just mean the people you meet when you are out doing some kind of business socializing or networking. And there are so many ways that you can help people come into contact with. You can simply ask them, what are their biggest challenges right now? One of the best questions you can ask when you meet people is, what are your biggest challenges right now? Because they'll tell you all their problems. And then hopefully when you hear that, you might be able to help them out in some way. You might not, but you might be able to introduce them to people that could solve that problem. You might be able to recommend books that helped you solve the same problem when you had it. You might be able to share information that you read. And this happens to me all the time, by the way. I might talk to someone, they'll ask me what my challenges are, and then someone very thoughtful will say, hey, listen, I thought about what you said. Have you seen this training course, or have you read this book? Anything you can do to try and help solve their problems is going to go a long way. And I want you to authentically be someone who wants to help people, because ultimately the more people you help authentically, the more stuff is going to come back to you. And the reason as well is because, as Malcolm Gladwell put it in the book Tipping Point, I guess that's where this quote's from, by the way, because I read the book and I'm pretty sure it's where it's from, but sprinkled among every walk of life in other words, are a handful of people who are truly extraordinary at making friends and acquaintances. They're called connectors. And the reason I'm saying this is that if you start to help people who are connectors, those people are more likely to have bigger networks and be able to help you out back in a much deeper way. And sometimes in life, you probably come across super connectors. Super connectors are also fantastic people to have around you, to be able to have in your inner circle, and to be able to help out on a regular basis if you can. So for every one of the 13 referrer groups, we should be trying to help them in some way. We've got to do this authentically. Trust in reciprocity. Trust that there's a level of indebtedness. As you help people out, they will feel compelled to help you out back. And this story's come up a lot in the last few weeks, because we've just entered the period of COVID-19, and a lot of people are going through losing their jobs at the moment, and a lot of people who are working in marketing roles. And actually back in the year 1999, there was also a lot of redundancies back then. There was a recession that happened, particularly around the telecommunications industry. And a friend of mine called Ray Harrington rang me up and said, could I fix his email for him? I walked round to his house. I was only a week into my business. I helped him fix his email. He tried to pay me. I said, I can't take money off someone that's out of work. I'm just going to help you. It's absolutely fine. I expect nothing back. I went back to my agency, and 3 months into my agency, I walked in to close it down because I hadn't generated enough sales. That person rang me up and said, I'm going to introduce you to the company that have just recruited me, thanks to the fact you fixed my email, because they have a budget to build a brand new website. And I won one of my first projects, and probably the one that kept me in business, through helping somebody else solve their problem. Even though their problem wasn't anything to do with what I do, it wasn't, I didn't, go around and fix his website for him. I just fixed his email. The reciprocity paid off. So in Adam Grant's book, Give and Take, he demonstrated that the most successful people are givers. He also noted that there were takers, matchers, and fakers. I've got a link to the book in here. If you can remember bit.ly and then just remember Adam Grant's book, that'll take you to it. Please read it. Which are you? A giver, a taker, a matcher, or a faker? Be self-aware, because I can't tell you, I can't tell you how many people, that think they are givers and they're actually not. Their natural demeanor is they're just trying to take something away. They're trying to get, and we all know that. We all recognize those people, that you cannot afford to be that person. You have to change your philosophy, because the most successful people in the world are givers. And when you read that book and you come out of it, you'll realize that you have to change your philosophy, because more positive actions will come and happen to you if that's the case. If you're not sure, well, I would probably get yourself to ask a few people and ask them, do you think that I am a giver or not in your network? If you're not very good at being self-aware, get other people to tell you how your behavior comes across. Because being a faker, someone who pretends to be a giver but doesn't really actually do anything, or someone who constantly takes things from people without ever saying thank you, appreciating them doing, will not work for you in the long run. People will not reciprocate. So I want you to be really, really clear that you've got to help people with no expectation, but at the same time, you have to have the right philosophy when you're there. Like, I can help people who are, I can help people out who are continually taking, to a point when just naturally my behavior will just start to slide away, and realize that those people are taking advantage of me. So always thank your referrers, whether you win the business or not. And this is another common thing that happens. Oh yeah, I got a lead for someone, but I didn't win it, so I didn't say thank you to them. Winning or losing a deal is down to you, whether you qualify it or whether you pitch to win or you pitch to lose, or you don't pitch and you just try to win the work and it doesn't come off. You always must thank the people that refer you anything, no matter how small or whether it's the wrong or the right thing. Obviously within a certain reason. If it's something to do with your business, then yes. If something completely irrelevant, maybe not. It has to be something meaningful, to say that I appreciate you. Don't be frugal. But also you don't have to go over the top. I mean, I'm not talking about, buying people holidays because they've done something for you. I'm just saying, buy something that is meaningful and to say thank you. And I want to give an example of this today. And unfortunately, during this training course, actually this came in last Thursday. So this is fortunately a very, very good example of this. A friend of mine a few months ago asked for a referral for a specific type of agency. Obviously I'm a non-exec, I'm in that referral list. I referred Nathan Lomax from Quickfire, and he'd helped me out recently, so I felt compelled to help him out back when I analysed this retrospectively. I feel like I owed him. He sent me a thank you, by the way, for the lead, even though it didn't go anywhere. And then a week ago, because of the current situation, that lead turned into a higher priority opportunity, and he won the deal. And he sent me through, it's fantastic. He knows I'm a Chelsea football club fan, and he sent me through a signed, no, it's not, sorry, this fantastic photograph with all of the famous players basically listed on it, and a personalized thank you note as well. And, look, I don't know what the cost of the sale was in the end for him, but what was his cost of sale on saying thank you to me? Obviously I'm going to refer him again because he appreciated the fact that I gave him the lead. And I know some of you know this, but I know that you forget to do this on a regular basis, because I'm obviously going into clients all the time, and I speak to agencies all the time who forget. I can't tell you the amount of people that I've referred business to who don't say thank you. And I can't tell you enough that I just naturally stop referring business to them because I don't feel appreciated. It's not that I'm deliberately matching, I'm not, because I'm giving unconditionally. Some people would do it that way, but that's not what we do. But how many more sales have those agencies lost because they've never said thank you? I'm going to tell you, in some cases, it's millions. It is, because I remember a £750,000 deal I referred to one particular niche agency that had a niche skill that actually, won the deal. And I could have referred to them at least 2 or 3 deals like that, quite high ticket items, but I didn't in the end because I didn't feel valued or appreciated. How many referrals have you lost moving forwards because you didn't thank the people that sent you the lead in? So the next action, by the way, it doesn't make you a bad person, not at all. We all forget to say thank you. I've forgotten before. And so it's creating that system from the earlier task is very important to stop you. So in task 2, we ask you to identify all of the referrals. You should have those lists. Ask yourself, how did you say thank you? Did you say thank you? Was it meaningful? And I want you, the next task, to create a process to make sure that when someone refers you business in the future or helps you out in some way, because there are other examples where it may not necessarily be around referring leads. It could be that someone saved you thousands of pounds worth of money or given you a piece of advice that's been a game changer in your business. Say thank you, because you never know that you might get just more of the same coming back as a result. So go back, thank all the referrals. You might want to create a shared memorable experience. Send them a meaningful thank you gift. Let them know why you're thanking them. Thank you for the referral. Thank you for the connection. It helped us win something. Share that success with them. And promise me, as a result of this training, you will never, ever forget again to thank someone that's helped you out in some way. We once had a client who had been going for 18 years and they'd never done anything to thank their referrers. The agency invited them to a dinner and immediately got another referral for £150,000, which they won. And the joke of it was that the referrers dinner that they organized, they actually sent on the invite a half bottle of wine. The referrer couldn't even make the dinner because they were busy that night, yet they still appreciated the invite and the thank you. And so that actually, led to them winning a significant piece of business. So I've been just move that there. Right. So you can see the power of thanking them. And one other story was a similar one where an agency invited 6 customers of theirs to go to dinner in a memorable restaurant, quite a famous restaurant with quite a famous experience in London. And all 6 people, and at the start of the dinner, they just said, thank you so much for all of you around the table have supported us in some way, recommended us to people. And it's thanks to you that, we're doing so well in business right now. Just have a great meal, no sales pitches, just great food, great drink. And that person went on to win £100,000 worth of business in the following 6 months. And so, and I've got lots of stories like that, by the way, where people have actually done something more meaningful to say thank you than just necessarily sending a gift or something else. I would expect, if you are truly being a giver and you are truly taking the right philosophical approach to help drive more referrals into your business, you should be in a position where gifts are arriving into your house on a daily or weekly basis because people are saying thank you for you helping them. That should be a sign of some kind of success, that you are being a giver. If you want to ever reach out to my wife and say to her, how many deliveries a week do I get of gifts of thank you presents for people I've helped? She'll tell you the honest truth and you'll probably be quite shocked. But as a result, guess what? All of my business comes in from referrals. So, it really does work. To summarize, be a giver, remember law of reciprocity, identify other people's challenges and help them out first, and always thank the people who refer, win or lose. Step 5, building a sales culture. No, building a referral culture. It can be hard for agencies to create sales cultures. This is why I crossed it out on the first slide, because it's a dirty word for some agency people. A lot of agency people believe simply that if the work is good enough, we will grow our business. And do you know what? There is an element of truth in that. If you do create great work, the clients will be happy and will recommend you. You'll win great awards, you'll build great fame and notoriety. But nevertheless, it is often a long journey to greatness. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a long path. And so taking some of these other techniques alongside that will not do you any harm. And in my experience, probably get you there a lot quicker. The whole agency team have got to play a part in creating a referral culture. The biggest challenge for that everyone has to overcome is probably the fear of asking someone for a recommendation or referrer. You've got to be in a position where you're comfortable asking, where you're confident about the value and the experience that you bring to your customers. I wouldn't have any hesitation asking my customers for a recommendation or a referral or or introduction to somebody else, because I believe that I do a very good job for them. And I think if you believe the same, you should have that confidence to be able to speak to your customers. And we'll talk more about how you frame that shortly. The simple reason is that your fifth largest way that leads come into an agency is actually from your team members. So the way I explain that is that it's important that everybody in the business knows how to drive referrals in, and everybody in the agency can actually explain what they do. Because if the people in your business don't know how to explain what you do, then one day when they talk to an old work colleague or an old boss about what it is they now do, they won't be able to explain it in a way necessarily that could create a potential opportunity for you. So you need to make sure that all of your team can also repeat the agency elevator pitch by heart. It might be slightly adapted for them from what you say, but it will be fairly similar. And you need to also understand that everyone on the team understands that the importance of engaging in the agency's marketing activities, them taking part in making sure that your agency does great work, offers a great experiences, and interact with some of the activities is very important. It can't be just down to the founders and the marketing and account managers, client service team, or salespeople to be doing that. It's everybody's job. I want to give an example of a client of ours called Cayenne. Last year, they received 2 leads with the potential for the prospects to spend £1 million. And both of those referrals came from team members. Cayenne identified that one of the top ways leads were generated for the agency 2019 for them was from team members, which actually backs up our survey again, right? Because I said it was number 5 on the list. And it may well be one of the ways that you identified on your list earlier on. So they asked themselves, if everyone in the agency knew how to communicate what the agency does, would that help increase their opportunity for generating more leads moving forwards? And of course, the answer was an obvious yes. If people can communicate what the agency does, they're more likely at some stage to get more referrers. So they set about a wonderful idea. They created a task to basically video all of their team. The team's over 40 people, and they asked them to explain what the agency does. And actually, the activity was good fun, light-hearted, very humorous, because the whole team came back with 35 different reasons on how they would explain. And they were all different versions of probably the same truth, but there was no consistency, bar, I think, literally about a handful of people or 5 people who worked in sales and the client services. So they now set themselves a task where they want to get everybody in the agency doing the same video, but where they all communicate the same thing right. Because if everyone on the team can describe the company elevator pitch in the right way every time, then hopefully at some stage in the next few years, when that one opportunity arises, they'll know exactly how to communicate what the company does. And so create an elevator pitch for the team, create a message that everybody in the team can do, and consider creating your own video by heart. And I think it's worth letting everyone in your team understand that they may only get one opportunity to do this. I mean, if someone works for you for 3 years, the likelihood is there'll only be one opportunity. I had a project manager work in my team, and he introduced his former boss, which was a company called Sony. And because of that introduction, we won Sony as a piece of business. It was probably the only single introduction he did in his 3 to 5 year life cycle with us. But it was just that one time. He knew what to say. He knew how to communicate it. So if you get this right, all of your team are primed and ready at some stage, should the opportunity occur, to potentially help you drive proactively. But do remember to keep doing drills. There's a lot of books out there at the moment on, Navy SEALs giving you management techniques. And one of the things they say a lot is, we do lots of drills to prepare us for the unknown. And in agencies, we should try and prepare that as well. So don't be afraid to come up with ways to continually practice that everyone, or demonstrate everybody knows how to communicate that. So 6, measurement, client, teams, net promoter score. In our recent Cactus New Business Lead Generation Survey, at the top of the new business lead sources for agencies was obviously clients, as I explained to you before. And this is the most important referral source for all of you in the lifetime of your agency. And it was two parts to this. The first one is the client recommending another agency, and then that could be an internal recommendation to someone in their wider team, or it could be an external recommendation to another, let's say another marketing manager or another CEO in another organization. Or it could be a client leaving and taking you with them to the next organization and introducing you, referring you into that new business. So both ways are referrals. And Net Promoter Score, as you know, is also known as NPS, is a customer service metric for you and your business that measures the likelihood of your team and your clients recommending you to a colleague or somebody that they know, a friend or a colleague. So the question you'll typically see, and those of you who know this will recognize it, is how likely are you to recommend our business to a friend or a colleague? And you probably find that people like Vodafone, quite large organizations, Virgin, they'll use this metric quite frequently. It's a referral measurement system. It helps you turn your customers and team members into evangelists. And evangelists obviously are people who are raving about your service and therefore recommending you. So how it works is the people that score you 9 and 10 out of 10 are what we call promoters. And the people that score 6 or less, they're what we call detractors. And the people that score, give you a score of 7 or 8, surprisingly, are neutrals. So what this basically means is that if most of your customers think you're good, and if you think back to a service maybe that you procure in your business where they're good, you might say, yeah, they're a 7 or an 8. They're pretty good. But then you'll get another company that you work with who are just amazing. They always go the extra step. They always surprise and delight you with things. They make you feel special. They always under-promise and over-deliver. And those guys, you're going to be saying, wow, they're just a 9 or a 10. They're just amazing. It was, they delivered so much value. And that's the state we're trying to get our customers and all of our referrers into with their experience with our businesses. So 7 and 8, actually, whilst it's a very good score to get, it's a bit of a nothing score, because actually, really, it just means they're happy with you, but it doesn't mean they're going to do much more with it. However, if you're getting 6 or less, then you're going to be finding, and by the way, if I just also apply this to your teams as well. So if you use the tools I'm going to show you in a minute, if your team are giving you 9 and 10 out of 10, or if you're working in the business, you're giving your agency a 9 or 10 out of 10, it means you're pretty much evangelizing about them as a great place to work, and you'll be very happy evangelizing to, happy team, happy client. But if you're giving a 7 and 8, well, it's okay here in my job. But if you're a customer or you're a member of your team giving a 6 or less, then obviously you're a detractor. You're going to be negative. This isn't good here. Like if you think about a service that you would give a 6 out of 10, you're not going to be recommending it. And you're probably going to be thinking about switching away at some point. So we're striving as an agency to deliver a great, reliable service, create a fantastic working relationship, deliver the right type of client experience. It's not all about the work, it's about the work and the experience. Deliver and demonstrate real value and the successful outcomes of the work that you create. And by surprising and delighting both your clients and your team members, you will create the best type of referrers. An active promoter, so someone who's promoting off their own back rather than you asking for a recommendation, and creating an evangelistic an evangelistic point of view from everyone who's talking about your business. So task 10, you must set up customer net promoter score. Now, some people listening to this training probably have already done some of these items on here. It's fine. There's 20 points and you probably won't have done all of them. But set up customer net promoter score. We recommend Retently. We've got no association with them, but it's just simple. Now, someone came back to me the other day and they said, yeah, but they charge like £100 a month or something. And that's why I want you to go back to work out how much you have got from client referrals in new business, and then decide whether or not it's worth you spending 100 quid on a piece of software that's going to help you drive even more inquiries and benchmark how your performance is so far, and probably stop you losing clients when they give you low scores. The level of investment will bring an ROI. Task 11, set up EMPS for your team. Now, really, Retently do EMPS, and there are lots of tools on the market to measure your team satisfaction, but we recommend Office Vibe because it's a good way for us to benchmark across lots of agencies how people do. But that will give you an EMPS score, as we call it, employee EMPS. There is another, I've seen TNPS, or technical net promoter score. So there are some other variations that you might apply into your business. But the happier your team are and the happier your clients will be, trust me, the more referrals you will receive. And by asking the NPS question, you are also creating another future trigger point, because you're planting a seed in their head saying, would you be happy to recommend? And in the case very recently with a friend of mine who runs an agency, he said, do you know, just asking that question has led to me getting more referrals without me asking, so I know it will work. Task 12, separately organize an independent client survey review, either annually, biannually, or quarterly for your agency. Include questions like, have you referred the agency, or would you consider doing? What else would you like to buy from it? Would you buy more from the agency? Like, come up with a list of questions that you do in your annual survey. And because by doing that, you're going to probably learn a little bit more about how especially if it's independent, learn more about how your customers feel. But again, it might be a very good prompter for an independent person to suggest to them, have they recommended? It might lead them to do that. Step 7, onboarding internal communications, including client and team members. So when you're onboarding new employees and clients, it's very important that you look to integrate information, and this is where I talked earlier on about creating more written information, about basically the fact that you get business from referrals, and referrals and introductions are an important part of your business. There's 2 areas here: the written communication with team members. For example, you might say when someone starts working for you, you might have a starter pack that you provide them, and in the content in there, it might explain the importance of recommendations and referrals and introductions. Or when you do some kind of letter engagement with a new client, you might have it written in there, you know, as a business that thrives on doing a great job for our clients and getting referrals. Please feel free to introduce us. You almost want to be open and talk about it, and be open to the suggestion that you're happy to receive referrals. Or you might do this verbally, so it might be that when you do an induction, you might explain this, or if you do a new kickoff meeting with clients, you might explain this. And let me explain a bit more about that. So firstly, when you onboard team members, you may need to explain that our agency, we're lucky, a large percentage of our work comes from referrals and introductions. You might need to explain that it's important to you that they're able to communicate what their agency does by heart and know the elevator pitch, just in case. And you might even suggest that when you do your probation test, actually part of that test is to make sure that you can communicate what we do. Might be one simple task. They also need to explain they need to engage in content creation and sharing. It's very important that they are helping and supporting posts with the sharing of your content, and making sure that they're fully engaged. They must help, surprise and delight with the work they deliver. if you're going to take those net promoter scores from 7 and 8s explained to 9s and 10s, we've got to be much better clients. What they deliver and going above and beyond. Where possible, they should also help, if they can, by inviting any relevant people or business connections to attend your agency events. One of my most favorite stories ever on this was a client who organized a drinks event and asked all of their team members to also invite their other halves. And one of the other halves happened to be the chief marketing officer of a large drinks organization, which they later went on to pitch and to win the work. So don't rule out the fact that actually your team members have connections that may be of some real value to help you with your agency. Secondly, clients are the largest source of new business referrals. So it's important that you onboard clients properly and that you are setting the expectation that you're going to explain to them that over the next few months, you're going to be doing a really good job. And once you proved that you will do a good job, you would love it if they would be happy to introduce you to any of their colleagues or LinkedIn contacts that may feel relevant. And understand what success looks like for clients, what makes them look good in their job, because it may be that doing good work isn't enough. Believe it or not, when people talk about the work, actually from a lot of clients, it's more about the client experience with your agency. The fact that you make them look good in their job by winning awards. You've helped them career progress by the success of the work you've done. You I said you made them look good through the you might have offered them a sort of a wider experience beyond the work, like learning. You might do some ways to educate them more about the way that your particular service is changing. You might do some peer networking, connect them to other people like themselves in business to share and collaborate with non-competitive businesses to help improve each other the way they work. You might offer team building with your team to try and help build stronger relationships. You might offer some event or hospitality as well as a sort of value add experience to working with your agency. So the client experience, you've got to turn happy clients into evangelists. You also need to surprise and delight them on a regular basis. And then you've got to be able to ask people for referrals and use reciprocity, do good stuff to help them out in return for them then naturally wanting to help you out without having to ask. But if they're not doing that, then don't be compliment to leverage favors. When a client rings you up and says, can you do me a favor? Jokingly say, yeah, I can do you a favor, but would you mind doing me one back? I just noticed you're connected to that person, or I saw you like their post the other day. How well do you know them? Would you be able to introduce me to them at some stage? I'd love to be able to talk to them about, what they're doing for their marketing or for their digital transformation or whatever service, their PR, their events, whatever service you offer. So I presented the findings from our new business lead generation survey at an event we organized recently, and the panelists asked the experienced CMO, would she be happy to refer her agency to her network, to her colleagues and connections? And she said, yes, she would. We then asked her, has she ever been asked by her agency to do that? And she said no. And pretty much the whole room gasped. This was an experienced CMO, but it rang true of a lot of agencies in the audience. And I'm sure it rings true with a lot of you. A week later, I had an agency call me and said that it really struck him that this experienced CMO had never been asked by their agency for introductions to her connections or referrals or recommendations. And then he went on to share with me that although it struck him, he then had this very strange and serendipitous moment when just a few days later, he met his largest client in LA, who said to him, why do you never ask me for referrals or introductions to the people I know? You're brilliant at what you do. I'd be happy to recommend you. Go through my LinkedIn and let me know who I can introduce you to. And he rang me up and he was just shocked. He was like, my business is so bad that my clients are telling me I should be asking them for referrals, not me asking them. So, again, audit, go back,
Write down all your clients, identify the ones that refer you and the ones that haven't. Have you asked everybody recently? You probably can't ask people all the time. You might be able to ask them once or twice or 3 times a year, but make sure you have done that. You've planted that seed in their head. I was asked recently, how would I ask clients for referrals? And it was a really good question, because obviously people find this very hard. So I kind of put something down, and I'll try and read this out to you in as human a way as I can, reading off a script. At Cactus, the majority of our business comes from introductions from clients like you. I wonder if you can help me. And I always say I want to help me, because people, when you ask another human being if they can help you, they rarely say no. If you come across anyone in the next few months who may benefit from services like ours, would you mind introducing me? So what I'm not saying there is, can you introduce me right this second? Do you know any
to increase? What I'm saying is, would you mind introducing me at some stage in the future? So I'm planting again that future trigger point with them. So task 13, make sure you have an onboarding process for team members and clients so they understand the importance of referrals, to your business, and integrate that into your communication. Task 14, along with all client-facing team members, run drills, practice with fluidity the techniques for asking for client referrals in different situations. So the example of leveraging, so someone asks for a favor, you have a response for that. Maybe just a cold, I'd love to go out to have a lunch with you and just have a catch up, a social. And then how do you ask in a non-salesy way, because you want to come across desperate? How do you come across in a way as, you do value our work, don't you? You are happy with what we're doing, yes. Is there any chance that you would be able to introduce us to some of the people in the wider team? And on that note, create an organizational chart of your customers, of your clients' businesses, and find out, is there an extended or a wider team? Go up and down the ladder. Is there a CEO that you could be introduced to, or is there someone more junior who runs a particular type of niche marketing, as a specialist area in that business? But work harder to get introductions across organizations. Actually, some organizations might well have different offices in different countries, and you'll be able to network your way and get referrals, introductions throughout that, if you are proactive and you practice how to ask for those things. Step 8 of the 12-step plan is external communications, PR, and social proof. Almost every time I talk to an agency owner for the first time, they will tell me their backstory. Whether or not you're the founder listening to this, or you're someone who works in an agency, it's probably the same story that you've probably heard them tell that story. It's usually the same story they tell on stage if they're talking about their journey, or when they're talking to new people that they meet. The story normally leads on to them talking about themselves and their business today. In my case, when I'm on the phone to agency founders, they usually share the achievements they've had, the successes, and then the challenges they face or have faced. And more often than not, the roller coaster of new business and lead generation is pretty much at the top of the conversation. It's one of 200 things that people tell me, but more often than not, lead generation is one of the main areas. And they point out that they can win the business when they get it, but getting the leads in the first place is the challenge. And they apologize to me as well. They say, I'm a bit embarrassed because we mainly get our business from referrals, and we just need to learn to market our agency a little bit better. Does that sound familiar with some of you? I think probably does. Maybe I'll get a brag or a humble one. Oh, we're amazingly lucky. All of our businesses are referred to us because we're just so fantastic at what we do. The simple truth is that all agencies, businesses get a huge amount of business from referrals. And if you say that to someone, you should never apologize for it or never necessarily show off about it, because the reality is if you tell people that your business is coming from referrals, they're going to think that you're fantastic at what you do. They're going to think that your clients and other people feel compelled to recommend you because you must be a safe, reliable pair of hands that delivers great work with great outcomes. So it's important that you don't ever apologize for it, and that you continually integrate that statement into a lot of the things that you do. So in the right way, you know, you and your team have to let everybody they know that a large amount of your business comes from referrals. For example, you might say something like, we've worked really hard to deliver such a good service for clients that we're fortunate that the majority of our work today comes from referrals and introductions from the people that work with us. And I think if you communicate that, then you will start to create a very sort of positive subliminal message about your business. And by sharing this with all the people you meet, they will feel more compelled to recommend you because you've given them more social proof that other people are happy to recommend you, so they should too, even when they've not necessarily worked with you. So when you're sharing your agency story, or you're meeting business people, talking to partners, suppliers, you're speaking at an event, sitting on a panel, talking to other people who are on the panel list or other speakers, you're being interviewed on a podcast, as more and more of you are these days, you're attending a social event, always include in your story of your agency that you are fortunate that the majority of your business comes in from referrals, because it will send the right type of message to the people that you're meeting and talking to. And in the 13 referral areas, I talked about that person from Austria who rang me with someone that had recommended me who I'd never heard of. We identified this area called random referrals from people you don't even know. The more you communicate that message externally about your business coming from referrals and recommendations, the more positive you are about that. And the more you do that on podcast shows and in talks, the more often people in the audience are going to come back to you and say, they're going to say something like, you know, oh yeah, you've been recommended to me, and you'll ask them who, and you won't know who they are. To assist this further, make sure all of your written communication also talks about your business often coming from referrals. Communicate that positively, so that in your documentation and your marketing content, for example, on your website, let me give you some examples of that. There was a big competitor of mine when I grew my agency who did this very, very successfully. It used to be called Fortune Cookie, and they're now called Possible, part of WPP Group. And he always used to write on all of his marketing, 90% or 9 out of 10 of our customers say they would recommend us to a friend or colleague. Every potential pitch or proposal he put together, that when the prospect checked out the website, there was lots of social proof and validation that these guys were getting recommendations and high ratings and scores. 75% of our customers introduced new clients to us in the past 12 months. Take those statements and put them on your site and communicate them to build further trust and social proof that you are good people to do business with. And if you want to see an example of how we do it, go to our website, because we do practice what we preach. Actually, on the front page, we talk about the services we provide, and we actually refer in there to our net promoter scores, and you know, to make the point that actually we are getting very, very high scores from the work that we achieve. Therefore, it's a validation that what we do is good. The next step is for you to get people to give you reviews and testimonials, and for you to help promote them. So the more positive things that people hear others say about your brand, the more compelled they're going to be to recommend you. So it could be that when you're talking to your partners and your suppliers, you write them reviews and testimonials, but it talks about, and it has your name and your agency on there. Actually, a quick example of this as a sidestep was I had a client who attended a major publications event, and they wrote this amazing, I would say sycophantic, amazing review saying how wonderful the event was. And they took that review and they put it on their marketing. And because this is a major publication, I think that review went out to like 250,000 people. And, you know, just imagine how many of those people then went and checked out who that person was and who their agency was. So it's important to channel positive comments from everybody that you get. If you get any kind of review, any kind of recommendation, make sure if people are happy about you, try and channel those into LinkedIn reviews, channel them into website reviews, channel them into Google reviews on your business. Just make sure that you're able to get those testimonials and those reviews out as much as you can. anyone externally publicly praising, your team, your agency, or your work, make sure we get that positive comments out. I think we have a testimonial on our front page from a client, just above our contact form, for example. And in fact, actually, if you look at what Cactus have done on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram, you'll see that every time someone says something positive, we put it into a template and we upload it, the positive comments. So we've got a system to do that, very, very slick. So I'd recommend that you create some kind of system. Task 15 says that, which is create a process that enables you to take any positive comment on your business and then quickly put it into your social channels as a way to continually drip feed out the positive things that people are saying about your business. Look, there we go. I've got a screen grab for you as well. So we have a template, which we use Canva, which is very quick and easy. Of course, most of you have got designers in-house, and we'll make this look even more wonderful. But we just start to, and it's good because we name check the individual companies who say things. So it also helps them get more, raise more awareness as well. Get your whole team, task 16, to understand the importance of supporting all of your marketing efforts on social media to help drive further the awareness of your brand and referral. In today's world, in 2020, social media engagement for the whole team is a must. It's no longer a question of quality of content. In the old days, you could create 4 bits of great bit of quality content a year and that would be enough. It's just not anymore. It's about quality and quantity. And anyone who starts to work for your agency moving forward, you need to set that expectation when onboarding that's what you're expecting, because you need to create a culture, or change the culture from bad habits in the past where people have been afraid to maybe contribute or take part. And I think you really have to dig deep into your culture if your whole team are not participating and feeling confident enough to shout about your company on their business social media feeds. Okay. Number 9, recruitment. Future employees and past employees. As my agency grew, I started to see the hidden value in the perfect candidate beyond the culture, values, and skills match. So beyond finding the perfect cultural fit and fit in terms of the values that they had and the behaviors they had and the skills, the fact they passed the skill test, I wanted more than that. I wanted to know that they had reasonably good connections or reasonably external express points of view about the work that they do. And so, a lot of candidates would come in and say, oh, I've got I used to work with these amazing clients, I'll bring them with me. I was never interested in that because actually, on the whole, I never really ever found that to work. But I wasn't really interested in clients who said, candidates who said, I'll find you, I've got a big network either, if I'm honest, because I was more interested myself in finding out, who were they connected to? What were the caliber of the people they were connected to? Who did we have in common? And sometimes I would speak to those people in common and I would ask them what they knew about them. And if they didn't know them at all, I would know that their network was probably not very, larger and wider rather than narrower and deeper. And so I started to make it a little bit smarter, onboarding and part of the recruitment process to make sure that people coming on board had good connections. And actually that way I had an increased chance, hopefully, of them at some stage, once I'd built trust with them and they enjoyed working for us, of them bringing in people they knew to our events and also to be able to introduce us into them potentially as people to work with. It was another very large leading agency new business survey in 2020, not as large as ours, but they focused on the strategic ways that new business people. So what were their new business strategies for not where did the leads actually come from, which is what I focused on, but what are their strategies? And I think a couple of strategies were clearly areas where business never comes from. But one of the things that they also highlighted in their report, which I found very interesting because they had a lot more people from the larger network agencies, was the importance of management connections. So hopefully that further validates what I've just said. So if you're certainly going to bring in people into a leadership team into your agency, you want to make sure those leadership team are continually improving their own connections, but also have good legacy connections, because clearly it's one of the ways that the largest agencies also obtain their leads, or it's their strategies for winning them. So we'd ask all future candidates during an interview, a blue halo, to demonstrate an understanding and to present the service that we offer as a company. So I don't know if most of you probably do this in your agency. You know, during the interview process, you might say, I want you to come in and present what we do. So you can demonstrate you understand exactly what we do. And I would probably today make that a more fundamental part of the interview process, because even if they don't get the job with you, they leave the process knowing what you do. And I'm going to tell you now, I won business from people I interviewed and didn't offer jobs to. Yeah, because I had a great interview process and I was always very good at giving feedback to the people who applied and didn't get work. Actually, those people would often go on and then recommend us to new companies. They go and start as potential partners. So, you know, try and build that process up for success when it comes to, you know, recruiting new candidates. The more employees that leave you as good leavers, who know now how to communicate your elevator pitch because of the other tasks you've set, the more chance you will have in the future of getting referrals from ex-employees. Make sure the majority of people that leave your business leave on a high, because they might just go and join a complementary agency and introduce you back in to that business. And you will increase the opportunity, if they also go client side, for them to invite you in to work with that client. I appreciate it's not always easy to leave on a good note, but you should always try. You know, there's a bit of a lost art of leaving parties these days, and there's an upgoing trend of onboarding parties, which I actually love as well. But I would, you know, really try and urge you to end things on a high with candidates as much as possible. In some cases, ex-employees may form a really good alumni and might form a very positive group of ex-employees who still keep in touch and work well. It doesn't work for all agencies, but it can work for some. So just bear that in mind as another potential thing for you to investigate. Number 10, selecting partners. Referrals from partners are broken down as follows. There are referrers that come in from your suppliers, from your non-execs, from ambassadors, strategic partners, group agencies, and in the case of independent agencies, that will be your frenemies and your agency collaborations with other complementary agencies. Let's start with suppliers and technical partners. Well, it's a really, really important area that when you are looking at strategic partnerships, you've got to make sure that the people you're working with, your suppliers and your technical partners, that you're trying to build success for mutual benefit. We always have a saying at Cactus that if you buy on price, you'll never really understand how to sell value, because people who buy on price don't understand the upside of buying on value. And it's really important, if you are serious about, you know, growing your agency and certainly increasing your new business pipeline, that you don't buy on that you buy on value and you don't buy on price, because you'll always make more money by buying on value than you will save spending less money on price. It's a false economy. So you have to change your mindset and think bigger. Let me give you an example of this. I paid FastHost, my web hosting company, supplier, £100 a month to host 300 websites over a 5-year period. After those 5 years, they had not referred one piece of business to me. And they hadn't really added much other value other than offering a fairly reliable service. A company called NTT Verio called me up one day to sell me web hosting. And instead of me paying £100 a month to host 500 websites, they asked me £2,500 a month for a slightly enhanced offering that would actually host a lot less websites. But I took them up on the offer because I recognized that NTT Verio worked with lots of large global brands, especially ones in sports, whereas the other company, who were a faceless organization, who were cheap, couldn't help me with any connections into sports at all. The salesperson had implied to me they organise lots of networking events, lots of hospitality actually in the sports sector, and I would get an opportunity to meet their other clients and their partners, if I was to become a client. So I bought their expensive offer. I bought on the value, the added extra value of their service, not the price. And that was the first time I'd ever done that. Within 6 weeks, I'd met another member of the sales team within NTT Vario. And within the first couple of months, I was pitching for a Manchester City football club, which was an opportunity, a 6-figure opportunity. He'd also introduced me to the Super World Rally team, which was a high 6-figure opportunity, and then Tottenham Hotspur. I ended up getting opportunities from, that trusted partner. So because it was the partner introducing me in, that carried a lot of weight because they were a respected organization. And I went on to win, pitched all 3, and I won 2 of those 3 opportunities. Paying more for the right supplier pays big dividends. Remember that. So who are your suppliers? Who are your printers? I often share a story about a printer referring £30 million worth of business to an agency owner I met once because he took the printer out for lunch and had a real nice conversation, and the printer liked his work and said, look, I liked him. And he said, who else could you connect me to? And he said, I'll connect you to British Telecom. They're a really good client of mine. And that gave him an opportunity to pitch for their work. It might be your paper merchants. It might be your lawyers, your accountants, other agencies that you partner with, freelancers, people who provide hosting, but no longer hosting. That's more cloud providers, IT suppliers. Once again, a reminder that choosing that right partner, right supplier in the right area may well offer you better introductions to their clients. If your accountants are an agency accountant specialist, they're going to help you build partners with other agencies. So make sure you get that from them. But if you are really big in pharmaceutical sector, then maybe choose an accountancy firm that focuses on working in the pharmaceutical sector because they'll connect you to their other clients who are in that space. This is something that not enough of agency owners do to help drive referrals from suppliers. Next of all, we have ambassadors. Ambassadors are someone who has a black book of connections. We often talk about the black book of connections and people with black books, don't we? I've never met anyone with a black book, although you can go to smithsons.com and you can actually order a little black book from there. These people are often connectors or super connectors. Often their networks are in niche areas. So ideally you want to build your connections and networks in, and hopefully drive some recommendations and referrals from introductions from that ambassador. And the first time we came across this approach was in an agency on the South Coast, where 8 out of 10 of the largest clients had come from just one ambassador. He was retained by the agency for £1,500 a month. The agency paid him a 5% commission on any leads generated over the first 12 months if they became a client. And he added value in other ways because he used to organize his own marketing into that sector they focused on, and he'd do his own roundtables, but he was able to help create content for the agency, help promote the content, and also help drive people to the events that they organized. The next supplier area is non-execs. Now, obviously you have non-execs who are relevant to specific areas of your business, like growing an agency. And then sometimes those networks, like in our case at Cactus, we've got pretty good networks in agencies. We have networks with people outside, but maybe we're not from a strong background. You might have a non-exec who comes in from a sector that maybe you focus in. You might have someone who's been in sports who sits on your board as a sports non-exec. Although sometimes be very careful of the difference between an ambassador and a non-exec. Sometimes non-execs in their role are actually better off being ambassadors for you because they're more likely to work on promoting you than actually helping you fix your business challenges per se, because they haven't been an agency themselves. So it's important that you understand that if, again, non-exec is a supplier, and, obviously I'm quite close to my clients' businesses. So I'm constantly thinking about anything that I could give them and help them out with. But it is important that you let your non-execs know regularly what it is that you're actually doing and the work you do, because you might only see them once a month. And I would say actually with all suppliers, make sure that you're updating them all the time, the ambassadors, like execs, the technical partners, your suppliers, with the work you're doing, because it's very important they can constantly put you, front of mind. The next area is agency partnerships. Now, I know nearly everybody listening to this at some stage in the past or is currently has agents partners with other complementary agencies, and these can come from complementary services. So, you might be a branding agency that partners with a PR agency. You might be agencies where a group of you come together to form a sector partnership where 4 or 5 of you form a small collective in retail or in finance. You also might have other complementary services. Geography. You might have I came across an agency once who had a partner agency in every European country, and together they formed a small partnership that enabled them to present credentials, European credentials, but they were internally referring business to each other's relevant countries because the people they targeted had an EMEA job title. And then you have similar agencies to who you are, larger and smaller. So I'm talking direct competitors. And I had this only yesterday in a board meeting where one of the mainstreams of referrals right now are coming from another agency who does a similar service, slightly larger, but they qualify out any deals under £100,000 in value, and so therefore this agency is able to pick up those deals under 100,000. So it could be that your competitive agencies are at different sizes and stages and qualify out of deals that you have. It can work the other way, by the way. It could be that you're a £1 million business and you've got £1 million lead, and you're never going to win it because you'll never get past procurement, because it'll be 50% of your 2 million turnover. If you win it, you might pass that deal up. But be under no illusions. I've seen more deals passed between agencies personally than probably any other lead source, because of the position that I'm in and because of the fact that I've always organized lots of networking between agencies. And I would certainly recommend, and I've certainly, one of the biggest deals I ever saw was between 2 direct competitors of the same size. So please change your mindset, to frenemies rather than treating everyone as a competitor and enemy. In the agency world specifically, I would say it's a very unique sector. It doesn't happen in a lot of other sectors. So some tips for partnerships: sit down and explain that you're looking for a renewed focus on referrals with your suppliers. You can do that right now during the COVID lockdown by doing a Zoom call or a Teams call or a Google Meet call, whatever you want to do, whatever platform, find a way, book a call with all your suppliers, all of your partners, and do this from this afternoon, and say that, or tomorrow morning, you're going to take a new, fresh approach to, you're looking to sit down with all of your partners and understand how can we both help each other, support each other in business and for mutual benefit and mutual outcome. And if that means you've got to change some of your suppliers, by the way, then so be it. Because if some of your clients are just got no interest to do that, then you probably need to review the people you're working with. Meet frequently, agree to meet frequently, update each other on the case studies, the work you're doing. Don't just send them an email, send them something physical or a PDF rather than just, an email. It's just going to get stuck in spam. And maybe agree to just do a monthly half-hour call just to catch up with them. Consider going out to their wider team. So if you're meeting with the owner of that business or the salesperson, try and meet other people in the organization. The more people in the partner's organization you can meet, the increased opportunities you're going to create. Look for any joint marketing opportunities where you can introduce each other's clients to one another for mutual gain. Some of your partners, you will be able to run joint events, and that could be online events or in real life events in the future. And you should be able to help both parties, help bring people in, and you get to cross-pollinate and meet each other's clients and introduce each other. And again, it's a form of referral and a form of introductions. Help your partners find new business. Don't be a taker. Understand what their challenges are, what their customers are. Provide them with testimonials to market their business and yours. Do joint case studies or just give them case studies. Make sure they play a part in supporting your content on social media and engagement. Is there an opportunity to co-create content for your website and for social media? Tell your partners you're happy to be that person that when they need to give a verbal reference, yeah, like let's say, for example, you work with a printer, and that printer, someone wants to use them, and they say, listen, have you got a reference? Tell the printer to ring you up. You'll be the reference because you know what a great service they deliver. And you become the person that evangelizes for them. You'll get one of these every fortnight for 15 minutes, but you'll also get to meet and speak to the people on the phone. I actually won business because I was the person that NTT Vario came to for references, because I always said what a great service they offered. And as a result, I got to speak to all of their clients and their prospects, and I won business because of it. I'm not saying I won business all the time because of it, but I had opportunities over the life cycle of that relationship. Step 11, being ready to receive incentives. Now, this might come across as a bit obvious, but you've got to be open and ready to receive referrals. This means you've got to be really armed. So I've already covered the importance of reciprocity and the fact that if you're just going to take from everyone you speak to and not help in any way, then the likelihood is you are not recognizing that you're ready to be receiving opportunities. It's just not going to happen. You need to also understand, though, that where is a partnership going to be a reciprocal one, and where is it one that needs to work on a different level, a different arrangement? And I know this will be the one burning question that nearly all of you would have asked me listening to this, or you would have asked me listening to this if you'd had a Q&A. It would have been, should I have a commission agreement? Should I be paying commission for people? And let me explain this quite simply, that with another agency, for example, as a partnership, if someone referred me a £50,000 deal, the last thing really they need from me is a £5,000 referral fee, because £5,000 to an agency is not really a lot of money. It might be for those of you just starting out, but what is probably more important is if I can refer back that particular business a £50,000 opportunity. So same with you. If someone's referring you're referring someone an opportunity for £50,000, the last thing you want them to do is give you 5,000 quid. You want them to say, listen, have this deal, but it'd be great if you could find me one back to say thank you. Yeah. So, and again, I'm not trying to ask you to be a matcher here, but it's like, don't be, be open, explain that you're looking for reciprocity. However, if you refer a lot of business out to people and they never give you anything back, then put a commission.
Because it's just a completely different type of business. Sometimes, you need to, sometimes, one of your suppliers, like for example, your law firm, you might say, well, it's unlikely the law firm are going to refer you more business. If they, I don't know, it's probably a better example. If they only work with agencies, they're not going to be able to refer you necessarily, opportunities to do work. So sometimes you're better off putting commission agreements in, particularly if reciprocity can't work and it's not equal, because for a partnership to be successful, it's a bit like a marriage. If two parties aren't equal, it just won't work. It has to be equal, like a relationship. It has to be equal to work. So you might need to think about putting in place some partnership agreements. You might need to get those agreements ready in advance, of having conversations, but don't let the paperwork slow you down, because sometimes there's nothing like an opportunity to have a partnership to force you to accelerate the need to get something in place. And there are lots of really great websites online now that you can go to, Google partnership agreement, and you can download these agreements very simply and set them up quite effectively. So remember, if you want to be reciprocal, if you want to have a reciprocal first approach, make sure that the value of the return deal is always going to be better than the commission. Always thank the referrers. Pay incentives to those that you can't be reciprocal with. Employees as an example. Now, moving forward, you might want to consider to pay a commission to your team members who introduce you to sales that are more successful. It might be fairer for them to get a commission. You might say their salaries are so high, it's really part of their job. It just depends really. But you might pay 3% because you are paying a salary of their first 3 to 6 months billings, different to someone who isn't being employed by you. A task to consider could be to, next time one of your team refers you a piece of business, maybe take 3% of the gross margin over that first 3 to 6 months and get the cash out of the bank. Get an armed security guard with you and take it into the office in front of the whole team. Give them the money. Obviously, then take it back off them again, put it back in the bank, and then pay them with the appropriate taxes. But demonstrate to the team that you are, the amount of money, the opportunity cost for them, if they're able to just help facilitate some kind of introduction or connection that turns into an opportunity and then a sale. So that's something that really I would urge you all to go away and consider. And task 18, create a partnership agreement for the other people, up to 7.5% for the first year. For the people who aren't doing reciprocity, have that ready so that if you do have an ambassador, or you have, you want to sit down and talk to a commission-only salesperson or someone like that, you've got a structure in place that can do it. So lastly, the referral action plan. What I've got here, and you'll get a copy of this for listening to this training today, is a 20-point plan. I've taken all of the tasks and put them in there so you can easily work your way through them. I'd ask you to label it: green, which means it's up and running; amber means it's in progress; red means it's on hold. And over the next few weeks, implement all of the points on here. Create the referral system for your agency and know that you are ready to receive and to drive more proactively referrals into your business.